Mr. Brown Mouse and the Bear. Once upon a time, Mr. Brown Mouse had one of his biggest adventures yet. He woke up early in the morning and decided he wanted to go to the other side of the mountains. The mountains were far, far away on the other side of the river, past the long grass, past the fields, and past the meadows. Mr. Brown Mouse thought to himself that it would take 5 days to walk all the way to the mountains, and then 5 more days to climb over them. He thought to himself, I can't do that. It's going to take too long. What shall I do? Not knowing exactly what he would do, he packed his bag and started walking anyway. He packed his bag with nuts and cheese, some extra clothes, his hat, extra boots, and honey biscuits and special tea. And off he went. While Mr. Brown Mouse was walking, he heard a high-pitched sound. It was coming from high up in the sky. He looked up and he saw a very beautiful eagle with very long wings and very sharp claws. Normally, mice are scared of eagles because eagles have very good eyesight. They can see mice far, far down below and sometimes like to try and catch them. But this was Mr. Brown Mouse's friend, Mrs. Eagle. They had met before on another adventure. Mr. Brown Mouse climbed up on a rock and called out, "Hey, Mrs. Eagle! Mrs. Eagle, come down from the sky!" Mrs. Eagle looked this way and that way, and then she saw Mr. Brown Mouse. She swooped down and landed on a nearby tree.
"Hello, Mr. Brown Mouse," said
Mrs. Eagle.
"What are you doing so far away from your home?"
"Well," said Mr. Brown Mouse, "I'm going all the way to the other side of the mountains. There's a special friend that I want to go see there. I haven't seen him for a long time."
"But it's going to take so long for you to walk there,"
said Mrs. Eagle.
"Why don't I just give you a lift?"
"Really?" said Mr. Brown Mouse. "But how will you give me a lift?"
"Jump up onto my back, hold tightly onto my feathers, and I'll fly you right across to the other side of the mountain. It will only take us a few hours."
Now remember, Mr. Brown Mouse wasn't scared of anything, and flying on the back of an eagle seemed like a very good idea indeed. He jumped onto Mrs. Eagle's neck, snuggled in so he was nice and safe, and held tightly onto her feathers. Then Mrs. Eagle spread her long wings and went, and with only 2 flaps, they lifted off the ground and went up into the sky. Mr. Brown Mouse had never been up so high in the sky before. He looked down and saw all the trees, the animals, the river, and the long grass all going by. He even saw the elephants, who were eating fruit from a tree, and the giraffes, who were walking along with their long, long legs. Mr. Brown Mouse and Mrs. Eagle flew right over them all. Soon, Mrs. Eagle started flying faster and faster. Mr. Brown Mouse tucked his little chin into her feathers. His little mouse ears were flapping in the wind. Mrs. Eagle let out a loud screech. She flew so fast that before Mr. Brown Mouse knew it, they were near the side of the mountains. Then, she started flying up higher and higher and higher. The higher they went, the colder it was. Mrs. Eagle was going to have to fly right over the mountain, and it was very high. Mr. Brown Mouse pulled his jacket tightly around himself. As they got closer to the top, they saw snow on the mountain. Mr. Brown Mouse held on tight. Up and up and up they went, until they got right to the top of the mountain, and Mr. Brown Mouse looked around. "Wow, Mrs. Eagle, look at this beautiful view! I can see right down to the ocean on the other side of the mountain." He looked around this way and that. They were as high up as the clouds, and he could see all the way back to where his forest was, far, far away on the other side of the fields. Soon they started to go down the other side of the mountain. Mr. Brown Mouse had never seen such beautiful sights. As they flew past the edge of the mountain, he reached out and dipped his finger into the snow, and it felt like cold ice. They flew down, 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 all the way to the bottom of the other side of the mountain. There, Mrs. Eagle landed on the ground, right in front of a big dark cave. Now everybody knows that Mr. Brown Mouse wasn't scared of anything. He jumped off Mrs. Eagle's back and said, "Thank you very much for the lift, Mrs. Eagle. I'm going to go into this cave now to find my old friend."
Okay, Mr. Brown Mouse. I'll see you later,
said Mrs. Eagle, and Mr. Brown Mouse went into the cave. "Mr. Bear! Mr. Bear! Are you in there? Mr. Bear! Mr. Grizzly Bear!" Mr. Brown Mouse walked deep into the dark cave. "Mr. Bear! 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 Bear!" His voice echoed off the walls. Suddenly, Mr. Brown Mouse could hear a funny sound. It sounded like snoring.